Shrim, Shrim, Klim, Glaum, Gam Ganapataye, Varavarada Sarvajanam me Vashamanaya Swaha, Om Saishwaraya Vitmaha, Satyadevaya Dhimaha, Tanna Sarvah Prachodayad, Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hello, Lynn.
Hello, Om Sairam. Thank you, Swami, for giving us this opportunity to recall our precious times with you in person. I am recalling several interviews that I had with our beloved Bhagavan between 1995 and 1997. For our very first interview, Swami came towards me and said, New Zealand, New Zealand, how are you? How many? How many? And I said, 21, Swami. And he said, go. Immediately, we filed into the interview room. Swami seated us and our group leader, Mata Betty. He immediately produced pink vibhuti for all of us ladies, not the men, only the ladies. And then he inquired to Mata Betty, how are you, sir? He always addressed her as sir because in her previous life she had been a saint, an Indian male saint, who had been a dear companion of Shirdi Baba. Swami had also called a group from New Delhi. The men in the group were office bearers, and they pushed their way to the front of the room to be closest to Swami. They were right beside me, and they made their wives sit at the very back. Swami looked at them, and he began to move his hand in the familiar rotation. We saw a flash of light, and out came the most beautiful, large, big silver men's watch, which he began to dangle in front of the faces of these gentlemen from Delhi. And these men were on their knees, pleading and begging for the watch. And Swami kept dangling it in front of them. And then he suddenly called to one of the men's wives, who was pressed up against the back of the room. The men had sent their wives to sit at the very back. And Swami called this wife forward. She came forward on her knees weeping, and Swami began to fasten the watch around the wife's wrist. As he did so, he looked at the men and he said to them, jealous? He continued to fasten the watch, and as he did, the lady was right beside me on my right. As I watched, the watch turned into a lady's watch, studded with gemstones on the wristband. The lady burst into tears, and Swami patted her on the cheek, saying, I know, you are a good girl. The men next to me looked completely crushed and said nothing else throughout the entire interview. Then there were several young men in the interview. Swami began to turn his hand again in the familiar gesture of creation, and out came from his divine palm several identification bracelets of silver. And Swami held them up so that we could all see them. They even had these boys' names engraved on them. And Swami gently fastened them onto the boys' wrists. The boys were also crying. Then Swami looked at all of us, and he smiled so sweetly. I'll never forget it. He turned to my husband and said, why did you come? My husband said, because I wanted to be with you, Swami. Swami said, why did you come? My husband said, because I wanted to be here with you in Puttaparthi, Swami. Swami said, pointing, that is Puttaparthi. This is Prashanti Nilayam. Why did you come? And my husband replied, because I wanted to be with you, Swami. And then Swami began to tell my husband many, many private things which were only known to my husband and I. Then Swami said, what do you want? My husband stood up and said, Swami, if we have your divine grace, we have everything. I only want your grace, Swami. Swami exclaimed, very, very happy. And again he began to move his hand in the classical gesture. I saw a flash of light come out of Swami's hand, and a large Shirdi Baba ring, glowing with bright white light, came out of his hand. As he fitted it onto my husband's finger, my husband was not even looking at the ring. He said, I only want the ring, the hand that created the ring. Swami said, very, very happy, I will see you privately. He then turned to me and asked me, how are you, madam? I've never been called madam before, but I said, very, very happy, Swami. He said, what are you doing? I said, books, Swami, your books. Because I had, for several years, been assisting devotees in writing their own recollections of their time with Swami, including Mata Betty, Peter Phipps, Madeline Gilman, and many others. Swami said, no, not my books, our books. And he spread his hands wide in blessing. He then said, very, very happy. And I was overwhelmed with joy. He then said, you are a good girl. And I think I had been waiting all my life to hear those words from my Divine Father. He then turned to others in the group, and he also produced several more beautiful pieces of jewelry for ladies there present and men. In one interview, he produced the most beautiful pair of women's earrings, which were studded with rubies, emeralds, sapphires, and diamonds. They were fit for a queen. They looked like the sort of jewelry that royalty would wear. And Swami held them up and he said, very, very expensive. But Mata Betty said, but Swami, they are not as valuable as your own gems of wisdom. Swami was very happy with her reply. In another interview, Swami did something that proved that he is the master of time and space. We had with us a young man who really was not Swami's devotee. He was a businessman, and he was intent on Swami blessing his business. He had told us this, and he was determined that once he got Swami to bless his business, he would depart for Tibet, where he was going to start an import business. So as this young man filed into the interview room, Swami said to him, chair for the mother. He meant Mata Betty, who he often referred to as the mother, because by this time, Mata Betty could not sit on the floor. She was waiting for a hip replacement, a knee replacement, and she was suffering a lot of pain. In Swami's interview in Prashanti Nilayam, there are two rooms. There is the first interview room, and then a thin curtain covers a doorway which leads into the private interview room. You can see through this curtain. It is semi-transparent, and we could all see stacks of chairs in the other room. And Swami said to this young man who was standing there stock still, Swami said to him, what are you, a statue? Chair for the mother. And the boy went through the curtain and tried to wrestle one of the chairs off of the stack. He was making a lot of noise, and Swami looked at us, rolling his eyes as if he was very impatient. And the boy could not get this chair through the doorway. He tried every single way he could push it through. He held it up, he put it sideways, he stood sideways, he pushed and pushed. He could not get the chair through the opening of the doorway, which didn't have a door on it. It just had this curtain. Finally, Swami, rolling his eyes almost in an exaggerated way, reached behind his back, grabbed the chair, and pulled it through the doorway and had Mata Betty sit down. He then began the interview and told this boy to sit down very sternly. Several years after this interview, and I must say that after the interview, this young man took off and we never saw him again. He left the ashram and presumably went up to Tibet. Oh, by the way, before he did that in the interview, he said, "Swami, will you please bless my business?" And Swami said to him fiercely, "This is not a marketplace, sir. Sit down." As I said, this young man took off straight after the interview. We never saw him again. However, several years later, I was back here in New Zealand visiting a small seaside community, and I saw a warehouse with the sign on it, Lotus. I think it was something like Lotus Imports, but I'm not quite sure. I could smell incense wafting out, so I decided to have a look. I could see a glass cubicle office inside and a large picture of Swami in this office, seated on his chair, much the same Swami was seated in that interview with that young man all those years ago. And there was that young man seated in front of this picture of Swami. I decided to fool him, and I crept into his office and said in a loud voice, "This is not a marketplace, sir." And he jumped out of his chair with fright. And then he said to me, "Lynn, I can't believe it's you. Do you know, I never, ever told anything what happened in that interview room. There was no way on earth I could have got that chair through that door. Swami changed the size of that doorway." And then I realized, yes, Swami had done that. Swami is not only the master of time and space, he is time and space itself. In another interview, Swami materialized yellow vibhuti for us ladies. And this was an extraordinary flavor of something like I have never tasted before. I could only describe it as the taste of violets. I don't know why he only made vibhuti for the ladies. He never spoke of it. Mata Betty never explained it to me either. But again, it was a wonderful thing to experience. His vibhuti, it was fresh. It was like talcum powder, very, very fine. Towards the end of this interview, Swami was handing out vibhuti packets. When he came to me, he took a large handful of these packets and pressed them into my hand so hard that I nearly fell over. And as he did so, he made his eyes look very large. He widened them as wide as he could. Looking into my eyes, he said two words, "Book center." I said to him, "Book center, Swami." Not really comprehending what he was talking about, I thought because I make books and help people produce their books, he must mean books are my center. And I thought no more about it. Until 6 months later, back in New Zealand, I received a phone call from a Dutch couple who had been running a small book service of Swami's books from their home, only a few miles from where I was living. They said to me, "Lynn, we have to suddenly go back to Holland to be with our sister who is very unwell, and we are no longer able to carry on our book center. We want you to take over the book center. I thought, oh no, this is what Swami meant. I'm in no position to start a book center. How is this going to be? They invited us for lunch. The table was spread with every kind of delicious biscuit and cake, cups of tea, all the things that I love. And they produced some large east-west binders, which had all of the accounting work for their book center. They were importing books about Swami and selling them from their home. And they said, this is how you do the accounting for the book center, and you will have to go to the airport and also get the books through customs. My mind absolutely blocked, because if there's one thing I am terrible at, it is math and accounting. And I thought, how can Swami have chosen me to do this work? I don't know how I can do it. But my husband was sitting beside me, and he said, Swami told you in that interview, book center, and he gave you all those packets of vibhuti. We have to do his command. I relayed this information to our secretary of the SaI organization, and she said, there are some rooms in the SaI house. You can start the book center there. She gave me the key. I can remember sitting in the back room saying to Swami, Swami, you must help me. I know nothing about running a book center. And I was given 2 small rooms at the front of the building to start the book center. I really had no idea what I was going to do. And I remember sitting in one of the rooms saying, Swami, you have to help me. I don't know how to begin, what to do. Shortly after that, one other devotee who had been in the interview room with me contacted me and said, Lynn, I will come in and help you. She had some good secretarial skills, and we began to take stock of the building itself. The walls were quite shabby. They had not been painted for many years, and even people had written phone numbers in pencil on the walls, and even written on Sairam on the walls. The carpet was very shabby, and there was even a hole in the floor leading into the bathroom. The electrics were not good, and there were just some bare light bulbs lighting the place. So I said, let us make a wish list for Swami of how we would like to upgrade the place. And we wrote down, Swami, we would like a new carpet. Swami, we need help getting the walls painted, new electrics, some nice lights. And you would not believe it, a day later there was a knock on the door. There was a young man standing there. He said, I am a house painter. I am looking for some volunteer work. If you buy the paint, I will paint whatever you like. And we chose some paint. We had enough money in the account to buy some house paint. And he did all of the rooms in beautiful shades of light and off-white. And then he disappeared. We never saw him again. Another day, there was a knock at the door, and an Indian man walked in. He came to my desk and said, you need a new carpet. Here is a check for $5,000. He walked out. We never saw him again. And then we were able to purchase wall-to-wall carpeting in a beautiful peach color. There was enough carpet to do the entire house, not just the area that we had ascertained. Another knock at the door. A lady came in and said, I would like to make a donation for lighting. You can choose chandeliers, any kind of carriage lights you wish. And we were able to do that. And also the electrics were fixed, and within a very short period of time, the book center was upgraded, and we were ready to start we acquired a fax machine and were able to start ordering books. That was the beginning of the book center, and I soon had a staff of 14 volunteers helping me. My husband built shelves, and we transformed those 2 rooms into a very vibrant and very active book center. People began streaming in. We maintained the book center for several years and then were ready to step back and offer it to the Sathya SaI organization of New Zealand to run. They wished to install computers and other technical equipment, and I am not very technically minded, so it seemed like the right time to do it. We then went to see Swami in Whitefield to ask him what to do next. Where should we go and what should we do? He was so sweet. He came to me on my birthday, Yugadi Day, in 1998, and he created Vibhuti for me. I knew at once that I had my chance to ask him, what should we do next? I said, Swami, where should we go? Should we go to Australia, Fiji? Should we come here to India to work for you? He simply smiled so sweetly and allowed me to press my Swami ring to his chest, and then he walked away. I went back to my room. My husband was there. He had seen the entire exchange between Swami and I. I gave him half of the vibhuti, which was very grainy and very crunchy. My husband took it, and he went into a state of complete bliss for 3 days. He lay on his bed with the biggest smile on his face, beaming. He didn't eat, he didn't sleep, he was in complete bliss. After 3 days, I'd had enough of this, and I said, snap out of it. You have to eat something. We have to think what we are going to do. And he opened his eyes and he said, smiling sweetly, Swami has indicated to me we are to go back to New Zealand. He has other work for us. And so with that, I managed to get him to a nearby cafe, the Green Parrot, and got him to eat some pizza and some roti. And as he ate the food, which was based on grains, he slowly came back into his normal self where he could work in the world. But I was afraid for a while that he would never come back from this state of bliss. And so I knew it was essential that he take some food. We returned to New Zealand, and a new adventure began with Vibhuti distribution, which I will talk about in another interview. I would like to share many more of Swami's miracles in future videos. This is just a taste of what we experienced face-to-face, heart-to-heart with him. We knew he was our Mahaguru. We knew without any question that we would devote the rest of our lives in his service. Thank you so much for your time, for listening. I hope you have derived some joy and bliss from these stories of Swami's miracles. There is much more to tell, and I would be happy to relate more in another interview. May Swami bless you all with his grace and love forever. Om Shri Sairam.
Sairam.